Good morning, students. Here we are to resume the new second term and new chapter for the second term, chapter number 10 as a syllabus, part 2. Chapter number 10 name is Three Questions, and the author of this lesson is Leo Tolstoy. Before we starting lesson understanding, let us understand about the author Leo Tolstoy. Let us have some more details about this author. So, Leo Tolstoy was a Russian writer. His name in Russian language was Count Lov Nikolaevich Tolstoy, usually referred to in English as a Leo Tolstoy. And he was a Russian writer who is regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time. He was born on 9 September 1828. Place name was Yanswa Poyanya. That is in Russia. Was his birthplace. He was died on 20th November 1910. That is 1910. He was died in Lov, Tolstoy, Russia. He was a short story writer. His very famous stories are here: The Death of Ivan Levin, What Men Live by More. On base of his stories, the famous movie were made. That was Anna Karenina, Two Jacks, La Argent, We Live Again, Ivan's 11th Century, more. So here are little bit information about this author. So according to this chapter title, Three Questions, we feel usually as and when we heard the word three questions, here this question not mean to the textual question answer, but for a life lesson. The king wanted to know those three questions so that he wanted to be a successful and never failure king in his life. Actually, why did this king wanted to know these three questions, and what were those three questions? Everything is written in this story. But if we elaborately try to understand this title of this lesson, Three Questions, so everyone should be aware of this type of question that may surround their life. Why do we want to know this answer of these questions, our individual questions regarding life, so that we can at least be successful in life, spiritually or economically. This is why each one has his own questions. Almost the common questions for on base of spiritual, we have many questions. Who am I? Why I am here? Why I came on this earth? There are so many questions on based on humanitarian. In fact, every human being should know this type of three questions, should raise the question oneself and try to find the answer one way. If one tries to know the same question's answer, the question like who am I, why am I here, who sent me here, why he sent me here, so many questions. At least if one is aware of this type of questions, so one will be at least lead his life on spiritual way. He will not harm anymore any living being. He would understand that the planet Earth is not his own family dynasty's inheritance. It belongs to each living being on this earth. So, he would at least think before harming this planet Earth. He will develop the feeling regarding the Mother Earth. The Mother Earth is well to do for every living being. The Mother is for all, not for one, but for all. It does not belong to anyone and anyone else mastership, but this Mother Earth served to every living being for their life. This is why we don't have any right to harm the Mother Earth or to harm any living being they live on this earth. At least if we are aware of at least this kind of spirituality, we are to be loved by God Himself. And if we understand the harmony on this earth, that means we can live life peacefully on these planets. So all these are necessary for every being. And here the chapter 10 with title Three Questions is little bit differ from this life story. Here in this story, the king himself wanted to know those three questions and its answer, aiming that he would never fail in any situations. He would be successful, ever successful. He would not be taken as a granted king. That is why he wanted to know these three questions and their answer. Knowing all these answers, the king wanted to lead and rule his kingdom in a time frame of those three questions answer. In fact, he wanted to do every betterment for every living being, every human being living in his kingdom. He did not want to harm, he did not want to punish the innocents, but he wanted his kingdom should live peaceful life forever. And that is why he suddenly wanted to know these three questions answer. One day he had such a questions, and that's why he had sent all his messengers to know the correct answer of his on these three questions. The king had promised to reward the one who will answer the correct way with money. Thus, he wanted the correct answer of those three questions. If he gets this correct answer, he will stick to those answers. He will frame himself into those answers stable, and then keeping in mind all those answers, he would rule the rest of his life in his kingdom. This is why, one way or other, he tried to know the answer of his questions. He sent in every direction, everywhere, his messengers. All those messengers met every wise person, every old person, and tried to know those questions answer. But answer reached the king were not satisfied by himself. Still he wanted to know all those correct answer. This is why ultimately who could answer this question? All the ministers, all the men of his council suggested him to go here, to go there, to get their three questions answer. Finally, when he got the answer that he should meet the hermit, naturally, Who can answer these three questions very well? Only the hermit, only the saint, only the sannyasi people, because those sannyasi people have least concern with the society people. They do not long for, they do not wish any longer for any kind of worldly happiness. They lead themselves, chanting the God name and living in a peaceful way, not harming anybody else on this planet. Thus, the king finally come to know that he should go to the hermit and get the answer of his questions. This is why he made an arrangement to reach for hermit. He disguised himself. He changed his kingly dress, and he went to the hermit. He rode on his horse and reached the hermit, because the hermit was living in a hut far away in the wood, in the jungle. So king anyway reached the hermit on his horse. There he saw the hermit living in a small hut. By the time when the king reached him, the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut. So even that time also the hermit was busy doing work. Even the king reached himself, the hermit did not notice him. And the hermit continued digging his bed of his ground. Thus king lost his patience, and he simply pleaded the king, the hermit, that he was a king and he had been there to know his three questions answer. Even then also the hermit did not stop his doing work. He continued. Now the king understood very well the hermit had least concern with him or his kingdom sheep. Anyway, now the king realized himself that after all he was a human being, and the hermit too human being. Being old person, the hermit, the king understood very well his duty very well, that he should help the hermit digging his ground. So here the king asked for the spade and allowed him to dig the ground. The hermit, without saying anything, he simply handed over the spade the king. While digging, the king continued with his questions with the hermit, that he came there to know the answer of his questions. Even though the hermit did not take notice of his question, and again the hermit continued digging the bed. The king got little bit excited, but he did not understand the way of hermit replying, answer, doing his work, and the king himself developed the patience. He became very patient. Meanwhile, the king and the hermit were simply doing their work side by side, one by one. They take their turn for digging the bed. Meanwhile, one stranger rushing toward them. He was a bearded man. He was a stranger. But as that stranger reached the king and the hermit, they saw he was injured, he was wounded, he was hurt. Looking at the stranger, the hermit stopped his digging work and he took him into his shelter, hut. There The hermit started healing his wound. He gave him water, he tied a bandage, and the king too was with him. Both of them did not know the stranger, but the stranger now started answering, talking with the hermit and the king. Very first of all, that stranger asked for forgiveness of the king. So the king took shocked, got shocked. Why the stranger was asking for his forgiveness? He didn't do anything to him. While asking, the king came to know the stranger in fact who he was and why he was asking for his forgiveness. Thus, king got all the way and granted his forgiveness to that stranger. When the stranger explained the reason why he got wounded and why he was attacked by his guardman, the king realized. Even though the king didn't understand the answer of his question, so he was insisting the hermit to answer his question, and thus the hermit tried to explain all his way in a spiritual manner that how the king got his three questions answered. The, the king, in fact, wanted to know the proper time of doing the best thing, the proper person to treat, the proper way, all these questions, and thus hermit one by one explained the best time in his life is that he came to him and asked for the digging the bed. He made him little waited, and thus he came to the stranger. He came across with the stranger. There the king got the stranger's story and why he was asking for his forgiveness. So the person whom he wanted to treat the best way was the stranger in the life. So this was the answer of his second questions. And what was the best way that he had helped the hermit healing the stranger? So thus the king got all those satisfactory answer of his questions. In fact, the hermit had the way to answer without saying any word. He simply made the king wait little longer. He simply made the king as and when that stranger came to his heart and the need of treating the person, that injured person. Thus, the hermit made the king realize that he got his answer. The king was very satisfied and he got his answer and he was happy, and thus the king got all these three questions of answer of these three questions, and then keeping in mind all these answer given by the stranger or given by the hermit, he started ruling the king. Then onward, the king understood very well importance of life, the important task, the important person, the important time. Then onward, he started ruling the kingdom very peacefully in a proper manner. So this is the story about three questions written by the Leo Tolstoy. Now we are to start reading and explaining the lesson. Okay.